topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending, where we believe in a better life through better business. Here, we help you aspire to greatness, achieve your goals, and ascend to new heights. Whether you're starting, scaling, or exiting, we're here to empower you with inspiring stories, enlightening discussions, and transformative resources to help you accelerate your success. Now, it's time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. Hello, welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. We are so glad that you are here today, and we do have a really important topic that is pertinent to what a lot of people are facing these days in terms of trying to get their A team into their company, trying to recruit and hire and make sure that they are getting the right people. And so we've got a wonderful guest who I'll bring in a second, but her name is Rebecca Lacy, and she has a lot of experience in this area. I did, before I bring her in, I did want to let everybody know that we've got some exciting news. We are actually going to offer a membership level where people will be able to get access to our $1 Million Academy, and they're going to have access to weekly coaching. So they're going to have a weekly Answer the Expert opportunity. And so we're going to give you more information about that here in the coming weeks, but it's going to be a great way for people to tap in further as we build out this community of the entrepreneurs who are going to ascend together, support each other, and help each other grow. All right. So we are going to go ahead and introduce Rebecca and have her come in here with us. And Rebecca, wonderful to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt, for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a fun topic, talking about personality and how it affects recruiting and hiring and making sure that you have the right people on the bus, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, before we get into all that, I think the audience would love to get to know you a little bit more, maybe a little bit more about, your background, your journey. So I guess just first and foremost, can you just tell everybody a little bit more about, who you are and your company?
Sure. I started life as a member of a very entrepreneurial family. So I've always been attracted to the small business world. And my first job, as a matter of fact, when I was in college, was as a partner in a retail business. And then later on, I left that and went to the corporate world, but there I was the manager of supplier diversity. So I worked with thousands of small businesses. And from that, I graduated to my own business with my soon-to-be husband at the time. And we, again, have been working with lots and lots of businesses of all sizes and shapes, domestically and internationally.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So you said that you kind of came from an entrepreneurial background. So your parents, like, did they each have their own businesses? Did they work together in a business? How did that work?
They work together. And, you can learn a lot when you're around successful business people. And you can learn even more if you're around people who aren't so successful. And unfortunately, we kind of fell into some of that, the latter. But my parents tried theaters, and we had a health food store and a variety of things. And they always wanted something that was their own. My dad was also a teacher. So, that was kind of the fill in the blank.
Yeah, man, he probably would have really thrived in today's world of all these coaches and trainers and teachers and courses,
Love it. He would love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, and there's a lot to be learned in people's successes and their failures, but it's that spirit of building something for yourself, I guess, that you got from them, right?
Yep. The risk taking.
Yeah, the risk taking. That's good. That's good. So what was your first entrepreneurial adventure?
My first entrepreneurial adventure, I bought into a health food store when I was 18 years old. and did that for a few years, but then went away to college, and so kind of let that go by the wayside. And then, I tried little things while I was working in the corporate world too, but nothing really clicked. And then decided to jump in with both feet to do this.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, in terms of the scope of the things that you do, right? It's not necessarily just the hiring aspect
Mm-mm.
of it. So what is it kind of more broadly that you do for companies?
Everything within the scope of what we call uh, yeah, never mind. Let's back up off that. But things
Right.
such as organizational development, doing assessments, coaching, and training, consulting, helping organizations communicate better, build trust, align to a common vision, and then ultimately improving productivity.
Yes, align and synergy, right?
Yes,
There's
yes, yes.
all right. So, um, now you said something about people can really learn from successes and failures. So you've been working on this for many years, right?
Yes.
And you've probably learned a lot of things. So what's an experience that you would love to share with the audience that you feel would help them in their own entrepreneurial journey?
One of the things that we're going to talk about today is the power of personality styles.
Mm. Hmm.
So, in this specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about the hiring and how this can impact hiring. We worked with a client, and it was a company that has probably touched us all a little bit somewhere along the line, because if you go to the movies, you've seen the results of what they were doing, and that's they teach race car drivers. So if you see race car driver in a movie, that's where they were trained, and a majority of NASCAR was trained there. And the owner was a very well-known man. He was a driver, both race car driver and personality style, and he hired in his own image.
Mm.
And so
Hmm.
about 80% of his workforce was also race car drivers and driver personality. It was a really interesting thing to watch that dynamic. If he was gone, nothing happened. They
Hmm.
were all, it was like the playground where everybody was playing King of the Hill. So we
Everybody was
learned,
too busy fighting amongst
everybody
themselves to
was,
actually try to. Yeah.
yep, because everybody wanted to be in charge. Nobody wanted to follow direction. They wanted to create the direction. And those who weren't drivers were all going, I don't know, who do I listen to? So that was a really good experience for us and for them to learn that hiring in one's own image is a really dangerous thing. And we've seen that not with just with them, but a lot of other companies too.
I think that's fantastic because we hire and then sometimes we market. And I know we talked about marketing and personality a little bit too, but
Yeah.
we market to sometimes uh, clients that we think have who are similar to us in
Hmm.
personality, but that's not necessarily even always the right
Hmm.
people to market to or the right people to work with, because there can be maybe a lot of clashing and whatnot.
Hmm.
So this particular client would hire based on his own personality, thinking that was going to be what was good. Was it for like every position or just like sales positions or?
Instructors in marketing and sales primarily, and then he had some people in HR and accounting and things such as that were other personality styles, but they just kind of got lost in the mix a lot of times, and became very frustrated.
What was his aha moment, if he had one?
He had an aha moment because he was complaining to us that how come when I'm on travel, I come back and nothing's happened. And so we had to do some digging to really find out. And when we started doing the personality style training with the team, did everybody's assessment, it became clear that he had a definite imbalance there. It was market that he couldn't expect anything to happen. And like I said, we've worked with other companies that were very heavy on analytic. Nothing happens. It's just you need that dynamic, that diversity of thought.
Hmm. I love that. So how does having that diversity of thought help a team be able to succeed and grow and scale?
Very good question. It's just like diversity of anything else. Maybe if we could bring up the key characteristics slide. Okay, well, here we got the definition there when it's like personality versus personality styles. Let's just do that real quick. The social styles or personality styles or communication preferences, whatever you want to call that, is not what your personality is. It's just basically what others see in you. So this is the public persona that you put forward, that is how people quickly categorize you in some fashion. So now if we could go to the key characteristics. All right, so if you look at this, you can see we've got 4 personality styles, and everybody has a need that they want, everybody has an orientation, and everybody has a growth action. So if you have a very heavily, like, let's use the driver example, they all want results, they all want to be action oriented, and they all have a difficulty listening to others. So if you don't have that diversity, then it becomes really difficult to get new ideas expressed. It becomes very didactic. These guys over here are very tell-assertive, so they like to tell other people to do. They control their emotions, so people feel like they're cold, and they can kind of turn them off sometimes. If you have a heavily with expressives, they're going to be looking for completely different kinds of feedback, as are amiables or analytics. So if you can get a good balance of all of them, then you have, it becomes, in some respects, it becomes messier because you have to deal with everybody's preferences, but you get different points of view, you get different reactions, and it becomes a much richer environment.
Absolutely. Now let's keep this up there for 1 second. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Our engineer is Rebel. She's awesome. Thank you, Rebel, for bringing that back up. So let's describe what people should see. Some people are listening just in the podcast. Just as a reminder, if you're just listening through the podcast, you can also catch us on YouTube. But so what we see is we basically 2 arrows, bidirectional arrows. One is vertical, and at the top it shows controls emotions. One on the bottom says shows emotions. So when you're saying expressive, Rebecca, you're kind of talking about those folks who are kind of on the bottom of that arrow, right?
Correct.
And then the horizontal arrow, bidirectional arrow, on the left side it says asks, and on the right side it says tells. So the folks who are more, they control their emotion is more of the analytical and the driving, right? So
correct.
we see some personalities on there, and analytical is on the left side on the top, driving's on the right side of the top. So analytical and driving are more controlling of their emotions, where on the bottom it says amiable and expressive, and they show emotion more, right?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. And then on the left side, we've got asks, and so they're asking more questions, more, I guess, diving into and getting more information, pulling out more information from others. And so on the left side, we've got analytical and amiable.
Yes.
And then on the right side, tells. And so these folks are more about telling other people what to do or what their ideas are. And that's driving and expressive.
That's right. And so you've just described some of the major flashpoints in personality style conflicts, because the analytical and the drivers have something in common. The drivers and the expressives have something in common. The analytical and the amiable have something in common, and the amiable and the expressives have something in common. However, drivers and amiables have nothing in common, and nor do analytic and expressives. So those are the 2 flashpoints that are most often seen, but not exclusively. For instance, drivers in analytics, because you see one's wants to be correct and likes to think, and the other likes action and results. So big flashpoints. Understanding where you are as in personality styles means that you can amend your approach to others. Unless they are also schooled in personality styles, they're not going to know, and they're just going to be who they are. But if you know, then you can act accordingly and make it a better interaction and provide an opportunity for everybody to be more successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little bit more familiar with like the disc. There's different types
Mhm.
of personality
Yep.
styles out
Right.
there, but it's kind of very similar in some ways, and that it's kind of got like the four
Mhm.
different types of personalities and whatnot. But I know you're super familiar with it. But yeah, so the you have certain personalities that kind of get along, and you've got certain personalities that kind of have some more conflict than others. But then you also have certain personalities that might fit a certain kind of role a little bit better, right?
Well, generally, we think that anyhow. Like,
Okay.
we think if you're gonna hire a CPA, you wanna look for an analytic. 'Cause I mean, that's where we kinda have a tendency to go.
Mm-hmm.
One question I get asked every single class that I teach is, "Who makes the best leader?" And
Mm-hmm.
the answer is personality style has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see more who are drivers or analytics are gonna fill more of those positions, for whatever reason, but that doesn't make them better. It's, how adept they are at the whole package is what determines that. I've seen great, amiable, and expressive driver analytics, seen great leaders in all 4, and I've seen lousy leaders in all 4. So it's that is not a great predictor.
I think, well, from my understanding, it's kind of that emotional intelligence aspect of it.
Yes.
So maybe if you have a good understanding of kind of where you're at and how to kind of determine other people and maybe where they're at or what
Mhm.
they need, would it be fair to say that those folks are probably rising in the
Yes.
leadership ranks?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it will also give them an opportunity to put aside a lot of their biases when they start looking at onboarding other people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen it very often where people will hire, and I said it before, they hire in their own image. It's somebody who they're really comfortable with. You come in, I'm an expressive. If you come in and you're chatty and, we have a lot of rapport, it's going to be really easy to say, you would make a great team member, but you may be really lousy at the job that I have that I want to fill. But I may be totally turned off to somebody who would be better. Expressives and amiables have a tendency to be a little bit intimidated by drivers and analytics because they're so different. But that's something we have to deal with. We have to get over it and give them what they need, and then we can build a great rapport.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. I think like kind of looking at what people like and maybe have a tendency to can be really, really helpful for the recruiting process. But I
Mhm.
think it's a part of the information that we
It's
bring
a
to the table, right?
part and
Yeah.
it's more about the person who's doing the interviewing than the
Hmm.
person than the other person, if I understand that I have a bias against certain traits, then that's something I have to work on, and that's something I have to look over, and I've done that with hiring different people where I was really comfortable with some people, but they really weren't the best candidate for the job. So I had to get over and get beyond looking at those traits that made me personally uncomfortable because it was just something that's so foreign to me.
Yeah. And I've talked to people before that they didn't get a job because they didn't fall somewhere on the personality
Oh,
assessment that
yeah.
the hiring manager wanted to see him fall on,
And
and so they just completely go ahead.
I think that's a dangerous thing. I
Yeah.
kind of think it's a dangerous thing to use personality style as a factor in making that decision. If I'm going to hire, I go back to the CFO. If I'm going to hire a CFO, then my logic says let's hire an expressive, but that expressive or an analytic rather. I'm sorry, but that may not be the best candidate, and I may be shooting myself in the foot by not being open-minded and to looking at everybody who doesn't fall into that. They may have great skills. I met an anesthesiologist the other day who was a total valley girl. And that is not who I expected to be my anesthesiologist. So, but so we have to be open, and that's again that comes back with informing ourselves about our own biases.
Yeah, I think it can be valuable in that it's a data point, right?
It
Like,
is a data point, right?
and it helps us to ask the right questions when we're sitting down with somebody
Mm-hmm.
to see if they're the right person. Like if I've got somebody who wants a sales position and they're really kind of more internalized, maybe more like analytical,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
rather than being a little bit more of like a driver, and they're really like out there knocking on doors or cold calling or something like that.
Fearless.
Um, yeah, we need them to be a little bit more fearless and maybe not overanalyze a
Mm-hmm.
situation. So if they're not on that like that driving side, but then also enjoying like different, meeting new people and personality, or meeting new people and socializing, then it's like, well, tell me a little bit more about this because this position is about cold calling and door knocking, and so you're going to be talking to a lot of people. Tell me about how you're going to keep your energy up. Is this the sort of thing that energizes you? And if it's not, then tell me more about how you're going to adapt to this position or how you've done it in the past or something like that. But is
Exactly.
that a fair way to analyze it and have
That's
that conversation?
that's it. Perfect. That's
Okay.
perfect. Yep. And I've worked with a lot of dental practices, and there they are doing treatment plan presentations, and a majority of the people who are doing are not trained salespeople. And what
Hmm.
we find is that oftentimes that they are only doing really good presentations to about half of the patients who come in. It's whoever they're comfortable with.
Hmm.
So they're cutting down their opportunities for sales by 50% just right off the bat.
Hmm.
And I think that's not an unusual thing in other industries as well.
Yeah, and if you've got somebody who's like, I guess more on the amiable side, right? The bottom left of
Mhm. Right.
the chart,
Correct.
right? Hiring, yeah, thank you, Rebel. Hiring a driver. You said that there's a lot of conflict or a flashpoint, if you will,
Mhm.
or potential for that.
There is potential for that.
And so you have somebody who is shows more emotion and asks more questions versus somebody who is kind of like driving and telling, and might control more of their emotions. Although driving, they might show certain emotions like frustration and and those maybe, but but so if you've got somebody hiring like amiable, they might not click with that driving person, right?
Oh,
Like they
very
they might
yeah.
they might be like, oh my gosh, that
It
person's too much.
it's just gonna shut them down often.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
unless they understand what's going on, and they have a strategy for dealing with that.
Hmm.
Um, all of everybody has an opportunity to have conflict with everybody else. I mean, that just goes, we're humans. But if you understand what's making people tick a little bit better, then you can help them and yourself be able to have successful conversations. And it is all about communication. It is like, here's some of my shortcomings. I know that I don't have great follow through. I'm a very visionary person, but I have a difficult time telling people how we're going to get from A to B. And I need people to ask me questions if I don't do it satisfactorily. And if I'm
Hmm.
honest with myself, then I can convey that to other people so that they don't feel intimidated asking the boss for clarification. If I don't
Hmm.
recognize that in myself, then I'm setting all of us up for failure.
Mm-hmm. So being able to recognize kind of your own limits and your effect on other people too. So if
Hmm.
somebody's a high driver
Hmm.
and everybody's kind of shutting down around them, it's not necessarily that people just don't want to talk to you, or it might not necessarily be that they're trying to be rude, because I've seen that before where like a high D, they see people kind of just shutting down and avoiding them. I
Hmm.
think people are trying to be rude. They
It's
don't
just their
necessarily.
it's their
Go ahead.
protection. It's their protection.
Right, right. Or an amiable person might be like, "Gosh, I just can't talk to that." They're always like, yelling at me. Which for an amiable person, just a forceful way of talking might, depending on their awareness, that might be considered yelling to them.
Yep. One of the most interesting conversations we've had at clients, and we try to do it at every client we work with, is how do you feel about good morning? If somebody meets you in the hallway and they don't say good morning, or they don't respond when you say good morning, how do you feel about that? And you'd be surprised at the number of people who that ruins their whole day.
Hmm.
Now, if you ask a driver or an analytic, they're like, if I hear them, I'll respond, but if I don't, I don't. Get over it. But if
Hmm.
you say that to an expressive or an amiable, they go, I've come back to my office and cried. because I didn't know what they were. I thought they were so mad at me. It's like,
Hmm.
so if we understand those little things, just tiny things can destroy a day's productivity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I know that there's folks who are looking at trying to attract a certain type of person in a position. They've got kind of an idea. And let's say they're even informed enough to know that, like, hey, we've got a whole lot of analytics and we need to balance that out with maybe a driver so that we can get a little bit of a variety and in the team. Um, what's some ways that somebody might be able to kind of attract a certain type of like personality into a position, um, or kind of be able to, um, uh, well, I mean, yeah, I guess attract a certain personality, be able to get them excited about a certain position that's being offered.
Well, so if you're trying, for instance, to attract a driver, you
Hmm.
don't want to load them up with a ton of information.
Hmm.
You want to hear them out. You want to give them opportunities to be directive. You want to give them options. If you're trying to bring in um, if you're trying to bring in an analytic, you want to do just the opposite. You want to give them a lot of information. You want to make them feel safe with taking time to make a decision. If you're trying to bring in an expressive, you want to give them an opportunity to shine,
Mm. Hmm.
and be able to bring personality to it. Have some fun. If it's very, very dour, they're not going to be interested. They don't like routine. If you're trying to bring in an amiable, you want to make sure that it feels safe, and that that there is an investment in human relations, so that it's not just about the bottom line; it's about growing people.
That's wonderful. Well said. Well said. Yeah, if I was just kind of thinking about that analytic, if you can identify that an analytic might be good for the position, again, all those other things that we talked about, and making sure that you're asking the right kinds of
Hmm.
questions. But if you don't give enough time, if you're like, well, you got to decide by tomorrow,
Hmm.
then you're probably already kind of like shooting yourself in the foot in terms of that process. That might be your normal process.
Right.
Hey, we need to know, because maybe you're a high driver. But if you're trying to get that analytical person in there to kind of maybe balance out your team, and you don't consider that for your recruiting process,
You're
then
doomed. And you can help. Again, I'm an expressive analytic. My husband is a driver amiable, so we have the opportunity to clash greatly, but we don't, because we understand it. When I'm working on a project and he's counting down the hours until we have to have it till deadline, it would be really easy for him to get the whip out, but instead of doing that, he asks, "How can I help you? What do you need to make decisions?" And I think that's a really important thing. If you are under a deadline, for instance, with an analytic, well, what do you need? What do you need from me to help you make the decision? Is there
wonderful.
anything we can provide for you? And
Yeah,
that goes a long ways for making them feel safe too. And safety
absolutely.
is a big thing.
Well, yeah, safety, I think, and it helps you build trust with your
Hmm.
employees. And
It does.
and if and you can't really communicate well unless you have that safety and that trust. So
Hmm.
it's a great foundation for that.
It is.
Well, we're kind of running up on time, but we'll definitely have to have you back, Rebecca. This is
Okay.
such a fascinating topic, and I think so applicable towards so many people. Pretty much everybody is dealing with another personality that they might struggle with. So
Yep.
this is a great topic. So, um, and now Rebecca did give me a personality profile. So if you would like to have, if you would like to know where you land on that chart, please feel free to email me, Matt at timeforsuccess.io, and I'll send you out the link to be able to do that assessment, and then I'll hook you up with Rebecca, and you guys will be able to actually review that together, and she'll be able to give you some feedback on that. Is that
That's
good, Rebecca?
perfect. And there's
Awesome.
also another piece that I sent you too that you can forward on, and it's just got the basic characteristics of each of the four. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, I can send that on out. And Rebecca, what's a good way if somebody wants to get a hold of you and reach out?
the best way is through my email, and it's rebecca.a.lacy@gmail.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thanks again, Rebecca. I look forward to seeing you again on the show sometime soon.
Thanks.
And thank you, everybody, for listening at Entrepreneurs Ascending. Again, we're going to give you more information here soon about the membership levels so that you can get some more support. You can tie into the community, and we can start building your business and building out these masterminds and these groups to help each other more and more together. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. But now is the time to put what we talked about into practice. Remember, your family, employees, and community are depending on you to rise up and win. The great news is you're not alone. You're part of a resurgence of entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business, life, and impact to the next level, and we're going to do it together. This show is powered by Time for Success, where we help business owners every day who want more freedom and wealth while building a legacy of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more helpful strategies and tools for creating the business and life of your dreams.